Savvy Business Radio, drawing out the best from our guests with our host, Christina Nichman.
Our guest today is Dr. Anita Sanchez, transformational leadership consultant, speaker, coach, and author of her new book, The 4 Sacred Gifts, Indigenous Wisdom for Modern Times. Today, she shares her unique experience and wisdom, a new way to think about climate change and the environment. Find out more about Dr. Anita Sanchez at the4sacredgifts.com. Hi, Dr. Sanchez. Welcome to Savvy Business Radio for our Heartbeat of the World segment. How are you today?
I'm doing great.
I'm so blessed to have you here today. Our good friend Diane connected us, and I told you before we started the interview that we started this segment because there was a lot of pain and angst in our country and in the globe about a lot of things that are bothering people, and they feel they don't have a voice. And a lot of people were screaming and hollering at each other, not really making connections to real change. And we hoped that Heartbeat of the World would help us bring experts from around the world to talk about these very important subjects and bring their wisdom to the table in a way that we can come together in a real constructive way to make real change. And so you've been a wonderful gal helping people understand new ways to look at climate change and how to respect the environment. You wrote a wonderful new book called The 4 Sacred Gifts, Indigenous Wisdom for Modern Times. And I want you to start by just telling the audience a little bit about your background, what brought you to where you are today, and helping people understand and respect the environment more.
Yes, well, as I said, I'm Dr. Anita Sanchez. My Ph.D. is in organization development. And for 40 years, I've been consulting and training to Fortune 500 CEOs and their teams and global nonprofit leaders. And why I come to this is because I'm also Mexican American and Native American. Aztec is my tribe. And so what I was starting to see, we've got all this information, and what it felt like what we were missing is wisdom. It's what you were talking about. If we use the wisdom, then we would know that, yelling at each other is not going to help, that we really need to come together to understand what our connections are. So with that, I wrote this book that's based on a prophecy and gifts that will help us remember how to be one with each other.
And have you always been in a space where you look back at your background, or was it as you became older, you said, okay, here's my heritage and stuff? Because for me, I didn't pay attention to where I came from when I was a kid. How did that work out for you?
No, I've actually kept track of it since I was very little.
Wow.
That's because it was such, I'm Mexican American, American. We would go to the Osage Reservation where some of my relatives were. But we grew up in an all-Black neighborhood. So and then we went to a school where it was very mixed. So very conscious from early on about race and culture and the importance of that.
Wow.
Not that it was bad, but that it was a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it is. You know what's so interesting, Dr. Sanchez? When I was a kid, and I remember, how old was I? I was quite young, and I remember I happened in my neighborhood to have a lot of Korean friends. It's just, I guess those are the kids that moved in, and it was a military kind of area where a lot of military families would move in and out, but all my friends were Korean, my closest friends. So one day my mom was bringing me over to my Korean friend, and she's like, why do you always have to play with those kinds of people? And it was the first time I thought, what is she talking about, those kinds of people? It's just Julie. And then she said, but her skin is different than yours. And I was a little kid, and it was the first time that was brought to my awareness that there was something different, quote unquote, about us. And now as I've grown older, I said the skin is only one bit. At the deep heart level, we aren't all different. But at that level, it's amazing how when you're children, the society, culture, parents, school will begin to separate and divide individuals into little boxes of, oh, you're this, you're that. How do you think that's come about, that we've created so much division between who's who and this is this person, this is that culture, and all that stuff? Yes,
well, I think part of it is a worldview, a notion of separateness, that we're each only individuals and alone. So there's a lot of separating that's happening. That's very different than the indigenous wisdom, which is taught, and I've learned since I was very little, sitting on the floor with my elders teaching us, that to be a whole human being is to live in right relationship with people, earth, and spirit, and that we're all one. So when you talk about the different races, in my book, I talk about this hoop, and there's the 4 races, so the 4 colors, red, yellow, black, and white, but they're one hoop, one human race, but our earth skins are these different colors. It's wonderful. There is no mistake about that. They're beautiful energy and knowledge and cultural experience that we bring to that. However, we are still one.
Yes.
One race.
Yes, I love that you mentioned that, Dr. Sanchez, because I think each culture, each worldview brings something beautiful to the table that, now I'm seeing a lot of people saying, let's homogenize. Let's just become one where everyone doesn't express themselves. Let's not have an opinion. Let's not bring a different point of view to the table. And I said, that's not really diversity. The diversity gift is where everyone has their beautiful gifts and wisdom, and we all respect it, and we all allow them to come to the table and share their wisdom without saying, well, we all have to think alike.
Yes, I totally agree with you. And that's really where I think part of the predicament that we're in. We do a lot of, we have these peace talks. But really what we need is some peace listening. And I'm talking about in every sector, whether it's business, government, your local community and your families. We need some peace listening because we're not slowing down enough to hear each other. I sometimes, Christina, please call me Anita now. That I often tell people that, I'm not going to give up my smartphone or my computer. However, you can't Google wisdom.
No.
So put them down just a few minutes every day, even to just listen, to go inward and listen to the wisdom inside ourselves.
Yeah.
There's 3 places that I believe, Christina, that we can find wisdom very quickly. Inside ourselves and our truth, going from the heart, deep in. The second is in nature.
Yes.
And the third is from true wisdom keepers, the indigenous elders who reside all over the world, who've kept the original instruction of how we are all one with each other, including not only people, but with the earth as well.
Wow. And explain for everyone, because I think that word gets tossed around a lot, the idea of wisdom. Wisdom isn't just having a bunch of information or I know stuff. It's a deeper spiritual knowing, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because we're drowning in information. We have a real lack of the wisdom, which is the experience, the spiritual understanding, the integration. That requires us to pay attention in a way that I talk about it, or my elders do too, about listening with the softest part of your ear. And then we're capturing more about what's going on. If we do that, we start to see how these things that we're hurting, this needless suffering that's happening, we can stop.
Wow. And it's so beautiful, Nita. This recalls for me a number of years ago, and I said this on my business show so many times. I left corporate about 6 years ago, the ragtail running around trying to move up the ladder type of ideal. I kept thinking that if I just reached the top pinnacle of this ladder, I'd reach happiness. And it kept not happening. I kept trying to climb, and it was so arduous, and I was just getting nowhere, but my health was going down. And I had to leave corporate for a while, and for the first 6 months spending time with myself, not working in a corporate environment of running around chasing my tail, I began to get connected to God again and my spirit again and to nature. I mean, as a kid, Anita, I used to walk for hours in the woods and connect and commune with animals. Now, I couldn't really speak to animals in English, but I could kind of like understand them and them me. And I lost all that growing up. How do you think this happens in our modern culture that we've become so disconnected from ourselves, each other, and nature?
Yes, I think it's because the mainstream learning teaching is that we are all separate. And so that illusion of separateness then causes us to act as if an indigenous, we say, the worst thing you can say to an indigenous person, so don't say it. Okay. But the worst thing is to say you're acting as if you have no relations. Meaning you're acting as if you're this individual, not connected to anything, so it doesn't matter what you do. So in the indigenous worldview, I matters, but we matter. And I will always be taken care of within the we. So that, I think, we're not having kids go out, even if it's just for a moment, to stand in the grass. Instead, they're behind video games. And I don't have anything against video games. It's just to the exclusion of us get reconnected to the things we're part of. Yeah. That is where it's not life-giving.
Wow. And what's so interesting about what you mentioned about kids sitting in front of video games and all of us, I saw a really disturbing show on Netflix. It's about how technology runs rogue over our lives and different scenarios of how that paints its picture out, into life. And it's a little scary. I mean, it kind of paints some of the pictures you see now in life, but to the super extreme. It could happen if we let it keep going in that direction. But what I find so interesting about technology and even video games and such is my brother loved video games, would sit there 14 hours playing games, but would want to play games with other people. Because even through these disconnected lifestyle we've built here in the West, we still really crave as humans that connection with others, the connection with nature, with your animals. It's something that we absolutely completely need, and is inside of our essence.
Yes, Christina, what I call that is, and I think it's a reemergence that's happening,
Yes.
which is belonging. So that connection is even deeper than a connection. It's actually that we belong. Science is showing us, Neil deGrasse Tyson, if you listen to him, or other biologists and physicists and stuff will talk about, we know now that we are made up of the same elements that are the stars, that are the earth. So we're basically all connected. And we know when we do damage in one part of the world, it has an impact somewhere else. And the same thing to us. So when we're what I call good medicine to each other, then and good medicine is anyone or anything that brings into alignment the spiritual, psychological, mental, emotional, and physical plane. So we can all choose to be good medicine to ourselves and to each other, or bad medicine, which is again the separating, the out of alignment. And too much that happens. Yeah. And so whether it's in the workplace, they talk about engagement time, but then all the things are set up to be so separate. Or in our families, we're not connected with you, but then everything is set up to be so disconnected. So it's about coming back together. And as you said, Christina, people naturally, human beings seek intimacy, belonging. And that's what we'll keep finding. Even in the darkest darkness, we will continue to look for that light of connection and belonging.
I so think that's true. And for me, my health kind of brought me to the pinnacle where I needed to separate, and I mean separate from Western living and just, chasing your tail and going to a job every day. I needed to be with myself. And it was amazing just being in silence. The first day I meditated for an hour, I was like, wow, why haven't I done this in a long time? Now everyone has a different path, but I do find that certain people who go through this experiences, I need to reconnect somewhere in life. It's usually like in midlife, in the 40s or 50s. And sometimes it's a crisis that will come into your life. It'll be like, it'll force you to stop, whether it's a child dying, you get cancer, you lose your job. And it'll seem at that time inside that this is like the worst event ever. But it's a reason. It's like you're being brought to a space where now you have to connect again. Yeah.
No, it's a powerful concept. Sounds very simple, but we need to be more mindful of doing that. So whether it's through, as you found with a meditation or with Indigenous people, I remember very early as a little girl sitting in circle, what we call a talking circle. Well, in the talking circle, only one person talks, and you might sit there for a very long time. So you really learn to listen, but you're not just listening to the other. In that space, you actually get transformed by the other. So it's wonderful when somebody else is working on something, you actually, any aspect that in your life also gets healed. Wow. So that's where supportive relationships are really key. And you and I have the luxury of being able to take significant time to do this. And I'm really happy for us. However, some people can't. You can just, even taking a couple minutes several times a day where you just pay attention to your breath. Yeah. Just get quiet, if you have to hide in the restroom, do that, wherever, just be quiet for a little bit just to get in touch with what's happening. Like you got in touch with your body was not healthy. Your mind was not healthy. Your spirit with, as you said, chasing your tail. So we all need to be paying attention because it's not a one-time thing. It's every day we get to use what I call that gift of healing, where listening is a key component.
Wow. And it's so interesting. I recall many years ago, this is right when I started the journey of leaving the corporate ragtail race to being with myself. I met an energy healer, and she, spent time with me and said what I'm getting over and over and over from being in your presence is that you're not living, being, and speaking your truth. And I thought, what are you talking about? And it's funny, now I look back and I see exactly what you was talking about. I wasn't living the life that most reflected my inner wisdom, my inner gifts and essence. I was just living the life I thought would bring me happiness and success. The things that the trappings were fed of, working up the corporate ladder and such. But you're right. Even if it's 5 minutes in a closet, or spending, just a few minutes with your kids, you think, oh, I have to help them do their homework. But spending that time, I find, people think, oh, okay, my 4-year-old, my 5-year-old, they have vast amounts of wisdom. You think they're a little kid that just popped out a couple of years ago, but that doesn't matter how old you are. You have wisdom even as a baby.
Oh, definitely. In my book, I talk about elders think doesn't have to do with age. So there are some wisdom keepers who are older, but there are older people who are not wisdom keepers. And then young people who we need to be paying attention to, because they really are already, I call them young people with old spirit, elders.
Yeah.
They already have this wisdom. And I can't remember the man, the very famous man who said, so I'm sorry, I can't quote his name, who said, was telling adults, listen to the children. Or in universe time, they are our elders. See, they've come in a particular way, and they aren't carrying all the stuff that we had before. So there's a knowing in a different way. So it does, we need to pay attention, listen to everyone.
Yeah.
And for that matter, as you did as a small child and began to redo as an adult, and what many people are finding is listening to the trees, listening to the wind, sitting in the grass, and you're like, well, I know I'm not speaking, but how come I feel different?
Yeah.
We're connected. We very much are connected, and we do nothing alone. I mean, these beautiful plants and trees are what's giving us cleaning the carbon and giving us the oxygen. We don't do anything alone.
Yeah. Yeah. I had heard this story that there was this government that felt the need to get rid of a certain annoying, I think, bird. And they thought, well, this bird's annoying, we're going to get rid of it. And so they sent their troops out to get rid of as many as possible, not realizing that bird was helping with pollination. So then shortly thereafter, they had a huge famine. It's like nothing happens without something. You think, well, this little annoyance actually is part of the whole, that you take out that part, now everything else suffers.
Absolutely. So I think we're what I love with you and your show, and hearing and seeing more in the newspapers, the more and more starting to rise up in the midst of all the separateness of understanding the connection of everything. And that to me is really key. But when we talk about oneness and being all relatives and things, how do we do that?
Yes.
How do we do that? And that's why I just love what the elders brought to all of us, not just Indigenous people. These gifts they brought for all of us to use to remember our connection to people, earth, and spirit.
And share with us a little bit of what you learned writing this book about a new way to look at climate. What was your greatest aha? Or maybe you've carried it around all your life and you just decided to put it in the book. How did it work out for you?
Yes. Well, I think it got clearer with writing the book. I've been involved in, in protecting the environment and understanding its benefits to all of us. However, I think, it's really natural. We think of climate, we think of sea levels and seasonal temperatures and animal species dying, all these kinds of oceans rising and those things. But I think what we lack is to understand climate change is also a spiritual issue.
Ooh, yes.
Because as long as we act as if we're separate, that's because we're disconnected spiritually. When I go to the Amazon, I spend time with every summer for 2 weeks with dream cultures with the Ashwar and the Sapra people in the depths of the Amazon. And everyone who travels there finds out very quickly, they're like struck. They're going, oh my gosh, these people do not talk about living in the rainforest. They talk about themselves as being part of the rainforest. Just imagine, Christina, if we all acted as if where we live and this planet was part of us, rather than us just living on it or using it. What if we had on every board room, we had a chair for the environment at those board meetings? What would that be like? I mean, it would just be really incredible. I love that shift, I believe, is possible.
Wow. I love that you just brought this up because I've been thinking a lot, and I mentioned to a friend just 2 days ago, seeing the great upheaval around the planet with natural disasters and events. I said, I don't think this is an accident. I believe this is a spiritual battle going on where a kind of a reawakening and a rebirth. And my friend was like, that's just what I was feeling. What's your take on what you think? Because I've never seen so many hurricanes and fires. And how are you experiencing it?
Well, I see very much the connection. Indigenous elders have been saying this for decades. The prophecy that there would become this time when we be in this great winter. And it's almost like right now we're in this washing machine. I've just with some elders. The issue is we haven't even gotten to rinse. So we know it's going to get worse. So whether you're listening to them or listening to scientists, famous biologist from Harvard, E.O. Wilson, who says, if we do not protect our biodiversity, right away, then what will happen is we will really do in our own species. And that sounds really alarmist. And yet when you go and look at 98% of the scientists, and I'm not just throwing out a number, I'm talking from facts, 98% are saying the same thing. So it is a spiritual issue. If we understood that we're connected, then we wouldn't be doing the things to each other that we're part of the earth. So we wouldn't be destroying it. Then we're destroying ourselves.
And from me, my perspective, it seemed like the first place to start is to choose to be reawakened, choose to be connected and pay attention. But besides that, is there any actionable steps we can all start to take to really start moving in a direction that would be beneficial to the entire planet and to all of us?
Yes. I think I'm going to go ahead and go back to the 4 sacred gifts. So that book you talked about, the 4 sacred gifts, Indigenous Wisdom for Modern Time, that I just came out. That's when the elders, 27 elders back in the mid-90s, came from around the world, from doing ceremony, called from spirit to create this. They built this hoop with 100 eagle feathers. And at the end of that weekend, they put into that hoop 4 gifts in order to help us remember to be in right relationship so we can create harmony between people, earth, and spirit. The 4 gifts are the power to forgive the unforgivable, the power of unity, the power of healing, and the power of hope. And I asked these elders, the ones that are still alive, like, how did you decide on 4? Here you're from different parts of the world, how could you come up with 4? And they all respond kind of like, well, you're a little silly, aren't you? The Spirit told us, if you use 4, then you will be connected in a way that we'll be able to support one another and have the kind of vibrant life that we're meant to for all species. And I've been using them for 22 years. I've incorporated in my corporate work when we're developing teams or doing coaching, whatever it is, bringing groups together around the world, because this connection, this understanding of how to belong is really critical.
Yeah. And that's why it's very critical they go read your book so they can understand what it's like and how to become reconnected. Honestly, I think our spirit knows. I really think when you get down to it and you let go of all the outer stuff of what we deal with, the small stuff that we feel is so important, I think you just naturally go to connection without really trying that hard. Because when I first started back to being with myself again and meditating, I was reading every self-help book I could. And at the essence of it, we just need to do it sometimes. It's like, oh, yeah, I know that. But you're not doing it. Why not?
There you go, Christine. If you could see me and your listeners could see me, I am smiling from ear to ear. Yeah. It's a big yes to what you're saying because like the 4th gift, the gift of hope. So we can go down the tube of like, oh, everything is terrible. It's all destructive. We need to see what is. However, in spite of facts to the contrary, there is still hope. It's an energy source, a choice that we all can make to use it. But to use hope means to be in action. So just do it. You're right. I'm not trying to steal that logo from a corporation, but just do it. Really get into action. A GPS doesn't work unless you move. That's true in our lives, both individually, our families, our communities, our nation, and the world. We are meant to move, and we're given all sorts of things now to help us know what those are. So hope is a really critical thing to use, and that means hope in action.
Yes, I love that. And I think it was about 8 or 9 months ago, I met a wonderful guest that came on our show that talked about how he healed his body, and my body was still going through things that needed to heal. And hearing him, I felt like this motivation, like, I can do this. And basically it was just like what changed from one day to the other. It was a choice. It was basically, I just said, I'm going to choose to eat better. I'm going to choose to move. And I think that's true with everything. Whatever part of your life you want to move towards more connection to your body, more connection to the environment, to the people around you. It starts with just making a choice and doing it.
Yeah. And then once you do it, like you, I make the story up because you sure sound like it. Everything you said is you're happier. You found that.
Yeah.
It's not that people can't find happiness inside of the corporate world.
Mm-hmm.
They can. However, for you, your calling and your mission was different. And then when you listen to that, and then you move forward in positive action, then it happens. And then the power of unity kicks in, because once you begin to re-experience that connection with nature, with yourself, with other people, then you hunger for that.
Yeah.
And you won't allow, whenever you go off and separate from that, you get it. Oh my gosh, no wonder I'm suffering now. I could ask for help, or I could understand this is hurting somebody.
Yes.
Or they may not know it's hurting me, or whatever it is. But again, like you said, you just, it's a natural tendency that as human beings, we want that intimate connection, the belonging.
Yes, I love that. And it's so true. I mean, I think often these days we're scared to reach out and also scared to tell how we're really feeling. And, we can do it in a loving way. You might have feelings about someone hurting you or something, but there's a way to do it in a loving way that says, hey, I'm not cool with that. That kind of hurt me. And let them know, because they'll probably be like, oh, wow, I had no idea. But if you let them know, then now you can both go forward and not be like you're hiding resentment inside, like, you're trying to do this to me on purpose.
No, it's true. And so that healing process is a really critical one. And when you talk, sometimes the hurts and mistreatments can be small or still hurtful, but individual, like, oh, you forgot my anniversary, that's really painful, I've been with you too long, or whatever it is. However, there's also the big ones that need the big forgivenesses, where we're talking about with whole groups of people. I think about Indigenous people almost all over the world. Genocide was committed against them. Now, fortunately, people didn't realize that when they tried to bury us, we were seeds. That's what we talk about. And so we continue to grow, and we're still here. Fascinating to me is the very people around the world where genocide was committed against them are the very people who in this prophecy are telling us we must forgive the unforgivable in order to be whole human beings in harmony and connection with people, earth, and spirit. So I think, wow, if my people and other people with the huge atrocities and stuff, if they can do it, I see on television where parents will forgive someone killing their child, and I go, wow. To be able now, if I could say, Christina, I want to talk about what forgiveness is not.
Okay.
If that's okay, because I think people, when we're trying to heal across race, across gender, sexual orientation, even with the earth and stuff, forgiveness does not mean you're weak. Forgiveness does not mean that you're betraying your own people. Forgiveness does not mean you're not seeking justice. Forgiveness is actually loving yourself enough to release that negative energy that has imprisoned you, so that you have then that energy to deal with the now and going forward. So I had a misbelief from early on. On one hand, I had a really wonderful childhood. On the other hand, I was sexually abused from age 4 to 13. My father was murdered when I was 13. It was race related. He was mistaken for a black man. They didn't realize he was Mexican, Native American. It's all horrific. And then of course the class, the sexism, I could go on and on. However, when I began putting down this armor of separateness, because I was trying not to get hurt again, I began to see that I was imprisoning myself. And when I forgave, Christina, it really is the path to freedom. For me, is such an amazing, wonderful thing that has allowed me now to do what I do all over the world and to be with myself in a way that I can feel joyful, that I can do right action on whatever issue I want to tackle, but not carrying the weight of old stuff that I can't do anything about.
Yeah.
But still seeking justice and correcting things and co-creating with other people.
Yeah, I love that, because I think often when we hear the word surrender, forgiveness, that means a kind of weakness or that you're just not holding right by it. Like, I couldn't possibly forgive that horrible, horrific act. Well, you can remember that it happened, not let it happen to you again, but holding it. I mean, the other person who hurt you can't feel the anger and the pain you're feeling and that you're holding on to. Only you're feeling it, and it's hurting you. So yeah, it's a wonderful gift to remember that if you let it go, you'll be the one that's free, not the other person, because the other person has no idea one way or the other if you're holding it or letting it go.
Yes, I agree. So I think that forgiving the unforgivable is one of the things that we can do as we're laying out those things that the listeners can do to, like, how do we reconnect to the earth and to each other? Awesome. How do we do this oneness? How do we look at climate as, as something that is a spiritual issue and not just a physical thing? It's all of this.
It's interesting. I think a lot of the strife is coming from looking at it, the problems all around the planet, from just a head view and not a heart view. When you're looking at a head view, it's all rational, like, oh, the numbers and the statistics say this, and so we got to go out there physically and march and be violent or whatever, instead of realizing, okay, how would the heart come at this? Not so much how would the head come at this.
You're saying, I'm smiling big again. I was just with some elders in Hawaii. They were 12 elders from all around the world, from the Kalahari Desert, from Kazakhstan, from the Bering Sea, Australia. I mean, they were from all over. And in their ceremonies, when they came together, what they were all getting was the same thing, is that we're at a time where we must lead from the heart, not. Again, it's not when I say that, oh, forget that, the head or the mind. But the thing is that gets very confused. If we lead from the heart, and then bring the head in to the whole situation, we'll be able to sense more clearly, reflect, and then make decisions and actions that will allow us to make those meaningful connections, those healthy ones. And so there is a particular role that's coming through prophecy right now of women. That women's voices are rising is in the midst. I don't know if you've noticed. I think I have all this destruction happening. It's also, we're seeing women rising up, and all the stuff happening right now with women and violence and stuff. Women are rising up, say, wait, me too, and let's stop this. And you're seeing the men going, oh, we can't have this anymore. And it's taking from every sector to change this. But this is also a part of the path in being a relationship with our Mother Earth. Because if we're not caring for our original mother, because we all came from the earth, then it won't get back into where we're going to have a vibrant and sustainable life for ourselves, for our children, our children's children, and other species' children.
Yes, absolutely. Well, this has been such an awesome, fascinating talk. I don't want anyone to leave here without hearing where they can find out more about you and get your wonderful book, The 4 Sacred Gifts.
Yes. Well, you can go to foursacredgifts.com. That's spelled out FOUR, foursacredgifts.com. And there you will find lots more information about my book, how to purchase it. But I also want you to go there because I have a free gift for you. Ooh. You can go there, and there's a song that was given to me that I made last March with some singers. And Indigenous and non-Indigenous, we came together, and it's all concepts based on the book. It's a beautiful song called In Right Relations. So it's what we've been talking about, being in right relationship with yourself, with other people, with the earth and spirit. And I think you'll really love the song.
Oh, I can't wait to hear it. Thank you so much, Anita Sanchez. I'm so blessed that you were able to come out here and share your wonderful wisdom and gifts today on Savvy Business Radio. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Savvy Business Radio broadcasts worldwide via a large podcast network, celebrating business owners, entrepreneurs, influencers, and successful individuals. Find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest. Call 732-474-7375 or email Christina at SavvyBusinessRadio.com.